All right, so let's get into it. And today we're going to deep dive into torque.
Ooh, torque.
You know, that rotational force that can seriously make or break your lifts?
Yeah.
Today we're going to be dissecting this really fascinating podcast episode all about the so-called laws of torque.
Oh.
Have you ever felt like your knees just want to buckle in when you're doing a squat?
Oh, yeah.
Like your shoulders feel a little bit sketchy when you're trying to do a heavy press.
Totally.
That's where understanding torque can come in.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? We spend so much time trying to build muscle and get stronger.
Yeah.
But without stable joints, it's
right.
It's almost useless.
Yeah.
It's like shooting a cannon out of a canoe.
That's a great analogy.
Or,
Yeah, all that force, but nowhere for it to go.
Exactly.
So this podcast episode we're looking at really dives into this concept of torque and calls it the key to turning on your joints for both safety and strength.
Okay.
So what exactly does that mean?
Well, think of your joints like hinges,
Right.
And without torque, they're loose. They're prone to wobbling.
Right.
Which puts you at risk for injury.
Mm-hmm.
But when you apply torque, you're essentially engaging the muscles surrounding the joint, and you create this squeezing force that pulls everything into a stable position.
So it's almost like those muscles become this internal brace.
Exactly.
That keep the joint from moving kind of in ways it shouldn't.
Exactly. It's like if you're twisting a jar lid,
Yeah.
you instinctively create torque to get a better grip.
Right.
Apply that same principle to your body.
Okay.
Whether you're lifting weights or sprinting or even just walking.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding how to create torque can seriously impact your performance and your safety.
So how do we actually create this torque in our bodies? The podcast episode talks about these two key movements, external rotation and internal rotation.
Right. External rotation is turning the joint outward away from the body.
Okay.
And internal rotation is turning it inward toward the body. And the cool thing is both of these rotations activate specific muscle groups that help to stabilize the joint.
So I'm guessing this is where these laws of torque come in.
Exactly. These laws, if you will, are really just principles of biomechanics that explain how these rotations and the muscle activation they create translate into joint stability.
Okay.
For example, let's look at the squat.
Perfect, because that's such a fundamental movement, but so many people I know struggle with it.
Right. And often that struggle comes down to a lack of torque.
Okay.
As you lower down into a squat, think about screwing your feet outward into the ground.
Okay.
What you're actually doing is creating external rotation at the hips, which engages those powerful glute muscles and helps to keep your knees tracking properly over your toes. It's not just about foot position.
Gotcha.
It's about activating the right muscles through rotation.
So that's why my knees used to cave in. I wasn't creating enough torque in my hips.
Right.
What about for pressing overhead?
Similar idea is as you press upwards, imagine you're trying to slightly twist the bar outward.
Okay.
This creates external rotation in your shoulders, engaging your rotator cuff muscles and helping to pack the shoulder joint into a stable position.
So it's not just pushing upwards, it's also this subtle rotational element.
Exactly.
That activates those stabilizing muscles.
Precisely. And it's not just about squats and presses. Take the deadlift, for example.
Okay.
You combine that screwing of the feet into the ground with a slight outward twist of your grip on the bar.
Okay.
This creates torque in both the hips and shoulders, setting you up for a much safer and more powerful pull.
Man, this is making me realize how much I've been missing out on by not really understanding torque.
Yeah.
What happens if we just ignore it altogether?
Well, ignoring torque is like playing Russian roulette with your joints.
Oh.
Think about those knees caving in during a squat. It's called knee valgus.
Okay.
And it puts a ton of stress on the ligaments in your knee, particularly the ACL.
Ouch. That does not sound good at all.
No.
And I'm guessing it's a similar story with the shoulders.
Absolutely. If your shoulders aren't properly stabilized during overhead movements,
Right.
you're at risk for shoulder impingement,
Okay.
where the tendons in your shoulder get pinched and inflamed.
And I bet the hips can get pretty unhappy too, right?
You bet hip instability is a real issue.
Yeah.
If you're not engaging those stabilizing muscles through proper torque,
Right.
your hips might feel weak and wobbly, especially during dynamic movements like running or jumping,
Yeah.
which can set you up for all sorts of problems down the line.
So these aren't just minor aches and pains we're talking about. These are serious injuries waiting to happen.
Right.
But the good news is this podcast episode says that creating torque is a trainable skill.
Absolutely. And the benefits go way beyond injury prevention.
Okay.
Think about a baseball pitcher. The power in their throw doesn't just come from their arm.
Right.
It originates in their hips, travels through their core, and is then transferred through their shoulder to the ball. Torque plays a key role in each stage, making the entire movement both incredibly powerful and controlled.
So by mastering torque, we're not just protecting our joints, we're actually like unlocking our full athletic potential.
Exactly. It's all about understanding how to work with your body's natural mechanics to generate force, move efficiently, and prevent injuries. And the best part is, anyone can learn to do it.
This is making me rethink my entire approach to fitness. It's not just about how much weight I can lift, it's about how I lift it.
I think it's about quality of movement, not just quantity.
Right.
And that quality comes from understanding those foundational principles like torque.
It's like we've been trying to write a novel without first learning the alphabet.
I love that analogy.
Right.
Once you grasp those basic building blocks, the possibilities are endless.
So for our listeners out there who are ready to start incorporating this into their training, where should they start? What should they focus on in their next workout?
I would say start by simply paying attention to how your joints feel during movement.
Okay.
Are they stable and supported, or do they feel loose and wobbly?
That's a simple but powerful cue.
It is, and then start playing around with those subtle rotations we talked about. Screw your feet into the ground during squats. Imagine twisting the bar outward during presses. Feel those stabilizing muscles engage.
And don't be afraid to experiment with those hip and shoulder drills we discussed.
Exactly. Those are fantastic for building that mind-body connection and strengthening those all-important muscles.
I have a feeling our listeners are going to have like those aha moments left and right once they start implementing these principles.
I hope so, because once you unlock the power of torque, it really does change the game.
So the laws of torque aren't just like some fancy fitness jargon. It's a roadmap to moving better, feeling stronger, and staying injury-free.
Couldn't said it better myself. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There's so much more to explore when it comes to human movement and performance.
Which brings us to our next episode, where we'll be diving into body archetypes.
Right.
Those fundamental positions that every movement is built on.
It'll be fascinating to connect those archetypes to everything we've talked about today.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it comes to torque and joint stability.
I'm already intrigued.
Yeah.
But for now, let's leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on.
Yes, remember, the laws of torque are not just about preventing injury. They're about unlocking your body's true potential.
I love that. So go out there, experiment with these principles, and see how they can transform your movement. We'll be back next time with more insights to help you level up your training.
You know, it's really pretty remarkable how something as seemingly simple as rotation can have such a profound impact on our movement.
It's like this hidden superpower that we all have just waiting to be unlocked.
And the beauty of it is you don't need any fancy equipment or complicated techniques.
Right.
You could start incorporating these principles right away in any workout.
So no more wobbly knees or shaky shoulders.
Exactly. But it's not just about feeling more stable in the gym.
Right.
These principles translate to everything you do.
Oh, yeah.
From carrying groceries, to playing with your kids, to simply walking down the street.
Oh, I can see that. Imagine the difference it would make in everyday activities if we were all moving with more awareness of torque and stability.
Precisely when you understand how to create torque,
you
move through the world with a different level of confidence and control.
Yeah.
It's like you're suddenly more grounded and in tune with your body.
You know, this is making me realize that maybe I've been thinking about fitness all wrong.
Okay.
It's not just about how much weight you can lift or how fast you can run.
Right.
It's but how you move.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It's about the quality of movement, not just the quantity.
Yeah.
And that quality comes from understanding these fundamental principles like torque.
It's like we've been trying to write a novel without first learning the alphabet.
I love that analogy. Once you grasp those basic building blocks, the possibilities are endless.
So this podcast episode mentions some common mistakes people make when they're trying to create torque.
Yeah.
What are some things to watch out for?
Well, one common mistake is overdoing it. You know, some people get so focused on creating rotation that they end up twisting their joints too much.
Ow!
Which can lead to stiffness or even strain.
So it's not about cranking on the joints. It's about finding that sweet spot of just enough tension to create stability.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between mobility and stability.
Okay.
Another mistake is forgetting about the importance of the feet.
Oh, right.
Torque often starts from the ground up.
We talked about that with the squat.
Yeah.
If your feet aren't planted and engaged,
Right.
you're not going to be able to create that rotational force that travels up the kinetic chain.
Precisely. It's all connected. And lastly, people often rush through the setup.
Yeah.
Not taking the time to properly position themselves before initiating the movement.
So whether it's your squat stance, your grip on the bar,
Yeah.
or even just how you're standing, that initial setup
Right.
plays a huge role in your ability to generate torque effectively.
Absolutely. It's like laying the foundation for a house.
Right.
If you don't get that part right, the whole structure is compromised.
So let's say someone is listening to this and they're eager to start experimenting with these principles.
Yeah.
Are there any drills or exercises they can try out to build that awareness and strength?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's start with a simple drill for the hips. You can do this one lying down.
Okay.
Just bend your knees and place your feet flat on the floor. Then press your knees outward against a resistance band.
Okay.
This helps to activate those external rotator muscles in your hips and build strength in that crucial rotational movement.
And what about for the shoulders?
A great one for the shoulders is a band pull apart.
Okay.
Hold a resistance band in front of you with your arms straight out, keeping your core engaged and shoulder blades stable. Pull the band apart,
Okay.
focusing on that external rotation in your shoulders. This is excellent for strengthening the rotator cuff muscles and improving shoulder stability.
These sound like great exercises to add to any warm-up routine.
They are. And even just spending a few minutes doing these drills a couple times a week can make a huge difference in how you move and feel.
I bet. And for our listeners who are already familiar with these concepts, are there any ways they can take their understanding of torque to the next level?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing you can do is start to experiment with different variations of exercises.
Oh, okay.
For example, instead of just doing regular squats, try incorporating pauses at the bottom of the movement.
Okay.
Or adding resistance bands to further challenge those stabilizing muscles.
Oh, I like that. So like adding layers of complexity to really master those rotational forces.
Exactly. You can also start to pay more attention to how you move in other activities outside the gym.
Right.
Notice how you're using torque when you pick up a heavy object or swing a golf club or even just reach for something on a high shelf.
It's about bringing that awareness to everything we do, not just our workouts.
Exactly.
What's fascinating about this whole concept of torque is that it seems to require a different kind of mental focus.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It's not just about brute force.
Right.
It's about finesse and control.
Yeah.
It requires a level of mindfulness that we don't always bring to our workouts.
It's like we have to tune in to those subtle sensations in our joints.
Yeah.
And learn to control those tiny rotations that make all the difference.
And that awareness, that ability to feel and control those subtle movements is incredibly empowering.
It is. It's like we're taking back control of our bodies.
Yeah.
And learning to move with intention and purpose.
And that in turn can have a profound impact on our overall well-being.
Yeah.
It's not just about physical strength and performance. It's about feeling more connected to our bodies and moving through the world with more confidence and grace.
I love that this deep dive into the laws of torque is definitely changing how I think about movement.
I'm glad to hear that it's truly a game changer.
So as we wrap up this part of the episode, what are some key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind as they continue to explore these concepts?
I would say the most important thing is to remember that torque is not just about preventing injury.
Right.
It's about unlocking your full athletic potential.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Play around with those drills.
Yeah.
And see what feels best in your body.
Exactly. Trust your instincts and most importantly, have fun with it.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground on torque so far.
We have.
And I'm excited to see where we go from here.
We too, in the final part of this deep dive.
Okay.
We're going to connect these principles of torque to the concept of body archetypes.
Oh.
Which are essentially those fundamental positions that form the basis of all human movement.
Now that sounds really intriguing.
It is.
I'm curious to learn how understanding these archetypes can further enhance our movement and help us unlock even more potential.
It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
It's funny, we've been talking so much about the physical benefits of torque.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's also this mental component to it as well.
Oh, absolutely. It requires a certain level of mindfulness and body awareness that we don't always tap into.
It's like we have to shift our focus from just going through the motions.
Yeah.
To actually feeling how our bodies are moving, those subtle rotations, those engagements.
And that heightened awareness can spill over into other areas of life as well.
Right.
It's about being more present in our bodies no matter what we're doing.
I love that. So torque isn't just like a set of biomechanical principles.
Right.
It's almost like a philosophy of movement.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about approaching movement with intention control and a deep respect for how our bodies are designed to function.
It's about moving in a way that feels good, that's both powerful and graceful.
Exactly. And when we move in this way, we unlock not just physical strength,
right,
but also a deeper understanding of our own bodies.
It's like we're tapping into that innate intelligence that our bodies possess.
Yeah.
And learning to move in harmony with it rather than against it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we're about to wrap up this deep dive into torque.
Okay.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they kind of embark on their own torque journey?
I would say start by paying attention to how your joints feel during movement.
Okay.
Are they stable and supported? Or do they feel loose and vulnerable?
That's a great starting point.
It is. And then as you get more comfortable, start experimenting with those subtle rotations we talked about. Play around with different exercises, different variations, and see what works best for your body.
And above all, don't be afraid to have fun with it.
Exactly.
It's all about exploring and discovering what your body is capable of.
Remember, these laws of torque are not just about preventing injury.
Right.
They're about unlocking your body's full potential, both physically and mentally.
Well said. And on that note, we're signing off. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of torque. We'll be back next time with more insights to help you move better, feel stronger, and live a more empowered life.